In last week's Parsha, we read how Joseph's brothers sold him for a slave, and he eventually ends up in an Egyptian prison. This week, Mikeitz, we read how over a decade later, he miraculously gets out of prison and becomes the vice ruler of Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh himself. For 7 years, the land of Egypt yields exceptional amounts of produce. Joseph sets up special storage facilities in order to stock up for the upcoming devastating famine. As famine engulfs the region, Yaakov and his family living in Canaan need food, so he sends his sons to Egypt to bring food for the family. The 10 brothers arrive in Egypt and are immediately brought to the palace of Joseph, where Joseph recognizes them and accuses them of being spies. They plead with him, not knowing that he is really their brother, to let them go back home as they aren't spies. They just came for food and to find their brother and bring him back home. Joseph puts them in prison for 3 days until he keeps one of them and sends the rest back with food for the family. All on condition they return with their youngest brother Binyamin. In response to this, says the Torah in chapter 42, verse 21, the brothers turn to themselves and say the following: "We are guilty because of our brother, for we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us and we did not listen. That is why this trouble came upon us." Vayoimru ish el achiv, avol Hashem imanachnu al achinu, asher ro'inu tzaras nafshay b'yischarenu eleinu v'lo yishomanu, al kein bo eleinu atzara hazos. Which means that when they realize that they are in deep trouble, they immediately turn inward and find in themselves what they did wrong in God's eyes that would cause them this current trouble, which is remarkable on 2 fronts. Firstly, the story of selling Yosef happened more than 20 years before the story of them standing in Egypt before him begging for their ability to return home in peace. And in reviewing their past 20 years of life, none of them could come up with any misbehavior that would cause God to do this to them. No sin to possibly pin it on until they reach an episode from more than 20 years prior. I don't know about you, but I don't need to go back 20 years. What's even more remarkable is the fact that the 10 brothers instantly turn inward. They don't look to blame anyone else. They know instinctively that God runs the world and is orchestrating this horrible chapter in their lives as a result of some previous misbehavior. The reaction to a negative episode is immediate introspection. As sons of Yaakov, they knew very well that nothing in this world happens for naught. There is purpose and design to everything. Almighty God stands by each person examining us if we are behaving properly. God knows everything about us now and every detail of our history as well. So naturally, if we are in a moment of distress, it must be that it's a signal to us from above that we have done some wrong in the past that needs to be rectified. There is something for which we still need to do teshuvah. And as soon as they recognize their own fault and they sincerely regret their grave error in selling their brother, they're told to go back home, and they're given plenty of food, and they're even given their money back as well. Which eventually, after a few more twists and turns, leads to Yaakov and the entire family moving down to Egypt. This idea of God's divine hand constantly moving all the parts of this world is a central theme of Judaism. It empowers us to recognize each encounter with someone as a moment to connect to something greater than what initially meets the eye. It directs us to constantly be in the driver's seat of life, to steer clear of the hazards on the road, and makes each stop a potential godly experience. And when something, God forbid, goes wrong, when it seems like we've gotten into an accident, we immediately recognize it as a message from above that it's time for some introspection. We're just concluding the holiday of Chanuka. We go directly from the holiness of Chanuka into the holiness of Shabbos. The holiday of Chanuka is the time when we say in the special Chanuka prayer, V'al hanisim, Masarta rishoim biyad tzadikim. You gave the wicked into the hands of the righteous. It is from Chanuka that we draw the strength to overpower our evil inclination and do what's right and righteous, to find the areas in our life that can use a little improvement and actually do what's right and make that improvement. May we merit to always grow to be better people and better Jews. May God's blessings to us continuously grow. A Freilich in Chanukah and a good Shabbos.